think small cars and some iconic nameplates probably come to mind, like Toyota Corolla, Holden Astra and Subaru Impreza. Another one, of course, is Honda Civic, which has just entered its 11th generation. The Civic is a little bit different this time around though, as it's only available as a 5-door hatchback, following the recent local discontinuation of the slow-selling 4-door sedan. But the even bigger news this time around is the single highly specified grade the new Civic is launching in. So, does it live up to its surprising $47,000 starting price? Let's find out. But before we do, I'm going to split this video into chapters with their time codes right over here, so feel free to skip ahead to anything you're particularly interested in. And if you're watching on YouTube, there are markers on the timeline below to make skipping ahead even easier, but be sure to give this video a like before you do. As always, if you want to know more, you can read my detailed written review on the CarsGuide website, so click on the link in the description below to go check it out. And if you're keen to stay on top of any of our upcoming videos, be sure to subscribe to the CarsGuide YouTube channel and then hit the bell icon to get notified when they're uploaded. Gone are the days of multiple grades of the Civic, with this 11th generation model available with just one, the VTiLX. Of course, that designation excluding Type R was previously used for flagship variants of the Civic, which makes a lot of sense considering how much this new version costs. Yep, there are no more entry-level or mid-range grades available, with this VTiLX priced at a surprising $47,200 drive away. As such, it finds itself going tire to tire with premium small hatchbacks like the Volkswagen Golf, Mazda 3 and Skoda Scala.
Standard equipment in the VTiLX is therefore generous, with 18-inch alloy wheels, a 9-inch touchscreen multimedia system and wireless Apple CarPlay support among the features added over its predecessor. Inside, a 12-speaker Bose sound system, a wireless smartphone charger, a 4-way power adjustable passenger seat, artificial leather and suede upholstery, and red ambient lighting are new too. Also included are dust sensing LED lights, rain sensing wipers, keyless entry, rear privacy glass, push button start, satellite navigation, wired Android Auto support and digital radio. And then there's a 7-inch multifunction display, dual zone climate control and an 8-way power adjustable driver's seat. But despite its premium positioning, the VTiLX isn't available with a sunroof, a digital instrument cluster, a head-up display, a heated steering wheel or cooled front seats.
Design-wise, the Civic has come a long way from the previous generation, which arguably was quite divisive with its boy racer looks. I was among the minority that actually enjoyed them, for the record, but this 11th generation model is definitely a lot more mature. Mind you though, from the front, it is actually not that different from the previous generation, I don't think. But again, that little bit more refined. You've got these LED headlights, which look really great with their DRLs integrated. And of course, this honeycomb grille as well, which looks pretty aggressive. And then down into the bumper as well, that also adds to the sporty feel of the front end. Around the side, you can really start to take in the Civic's new long, flat bonnet, which looks really good. And as you work your way down the side, you start to see these character lines and body lines coming through as well, nice and strong. Also, the side mirrors have been repositioned onto the door for improved visibility as well. But also the door handles just look a lot cleaner than before and really nicely integrated into the bodywork. Now, you're also starting to notice as well the kind of coupe style roofline that the hatchback really now has. It certainly is lower than before, but thanks to the repositioned hinges for the hatchback, you actually don't lose any headroom inside. And it kind of caters towards sedan and hatchback buyers that have traditionally gone for one or the other. It's almost kind of like a fastback now. But my favorite element of this VTiLX in particular are these 18-inch alloy wheels. I really love their Y-spoke design and their bi-color finish, and I think they add a real sense of sportiness to the new Civic. At the rear, the new Civic's maturity is really apparent. Gone are the double spoilers of the previous generation. Instead, you get this one little element here. But the main point with that is you now have an uninterrupted section of rear glass, whereas before it was split. So again, that helps with visibility. Working your way down, tail lights aren't as chunky as before. They're a lot smoother, but also you've got this kind of bar linking them as well, which is a particularly modern design flourish. And then further down, the bumper is more body color than before, less plastic around the place, although you still get that diffuser insert down the bottom, and the tailpipe finishes as well are nice and wide to add to the overall sporty theme of the new Civic. Inside, Honda has clearly gone to lengths to make the new Civic feel more premium than its predecessor. You've got lots of really nice soft touch material here on the dashboard and the upper door shoulders, which adds to that premium feel. And of course, as you work your way down the dash, you get the obligatory gloss black trim, but thankfully it's in uncommon touch point areas, so hopefully you won't be getting fingerprints or scratches on it too easily. Another design element which is really cool is this kind of mesh signature for the air vents, which stretches pretty much all the way across the dash. It's only interrupted by the steering wheel, adds to the feel of the cabin and gives it a different texture and finish. But also the switches for the air vents just feel really nice to use, and that's also true of the physical climate controls that you've got down here too. They just feel really great to use. That's a really nice touch from Honda there. Another premium touch is the artificial leather and suede upholstery of the VTiLX. It's used on the seats. You've got red stitching as well to add to that sporty feel. Red stitching is also on this really lovely steering wheel and also the more traditional gear selector too. Another thing I really like is the material that Honda's used in these more common areas. Instead of gloss black, it's this kind of textured material that doesn't scratch easily or get finger marks on it. So yeah, I really like the different use of materials in here as well. But of course, the big news is this 9-inch touchscreen multimedia system. That's 2 inches larger than before. It's a really high quality display that Honda's moved in towards. But more importantly, it's got a new multimedia system. As you can see, Apple CarPlay is currently on the screen now. If you're an iPhone user like me, that's wireless. Android Auto users are wired instead. But as you can see, it's a fairly basic multimedia system, but it definitely serves up everything you could possibly need. And you get these shortcut buttons on the bottom for things like digital radio, FM, or even phones. So you can easily flick between all of those. So that's a really nice implementation there. What is disappointing though is we don't get a digital instrument cluster in Australia. It is available in other markets, but instead here we get a 7-inch multifunction display. Now that does serve up all the functionality that you probably want. Trip computer, all that kind of stuff is there and it works pretty well, but it just would have been nice to see the full display fitted here in Australia, because it certainly would have opened up things like maps being displayed ahead of the driver. So that is a bit of a miss and a little unfortunate there. But what do you think of the design? Let us know in the comments below. Practicality wise, being on the larger side for a small hatchback, the new Civic has a very large boot. In total, you've got 449 litres of cargo capacity, and that includes an extra 10% or so, which is found under floor. Now, normally, of course, that's where you would have a spare wheel, but the new Civic doesn't have one. Instead, you've got this tyre repair kit that's hidden away towards the side here. In terms of protecting your cargo, you've got this retractable cargo blind here, which is pretty handy, and you can get it out of the way nice and easily like that. But if you do need additional storage space, you can of course fold down the 60-40 split rear bench with these boot accessible latches, just as simply as that. What that does expose is the full cargo capacity of the Civic. That number is undisclosed, but you've definitely got a lot of room to play with. One thing to note though is there is a bit of a hump in the boot floor that is exposed. You've also got a really tall load lip as well, which can make it fitting bulkier items a little bit more difficult, but for loose items, you've got 4 tie-down points and also a bag hook as well. Here in the second row, things are pretty roomy. I'm sitting behind my 184 centimeter driving position, and as you can see, I've got inches of legroom, and even with the swooping roofline, I've still got enough headroom as well, so it's pretty comfortable here. There is a rather large transmission tunnel though, so if you did have 3 adults in the second row, they would be competing for footwell space, but again, it's not particularly wide either, so best to be doing that on shorter journeys. If you've got kids, there are 3 top tether and 2 Isofix anchorage points for fitting child seats. Also, there is a fold down armrest with a couple of cup holders, which again, perfect for the CarsGuide bottle. Also, the door bins are large enough to again take 1 regular bottle each. At the rear of the center console, we've got a couple of directional air vents, and there's also a provision for USB ports, but again, in Australia, for whatever reason, we don't actually get them. A couple of other amenities we get as well are mat pockets on the back of the passenger seat, but not the driver's, and coat hooks just up here next to the door handles. Now in the first row, you do have plenty of storage options. You've got this really large central bin here, and it's got a removable tray for coins and the like, so that's a really nice option there. Also, the glove box is here. It's large enough to fit the owner's manual and maybe a few other things, but that's not too unusual for this segment. You also get a couple of cup holders here in the center console, perfect for the CarsGuide bottle. And ahead of them is this really grippy wireless smartphone charger that you can actually turn off too when you want to use that cubby as a storage area. So that's a really smart implementation there too. Just above are a 12-volt power outlet and 2 USB-A ports. No USB-C ports in this particular car, but yeah, you've got your connectivity options there for you. Now, one other thing to note is we do have front door bins, and they are large enough to take one regular bottle each, and of course there's extra space for some other stuff as well.
When it comes to safety, the Civic has also come a long way, but that's not to say it's reset its segment's benchmark. Advanced driver assist systems that are new to the VTiLX include traffic jam assist, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, driver attention monitoring, and rear occupant alert, while dual knee airbags have also joined the package, taking the total to 8. Autonomous emergency braking with intersection assist and pedestrian and cyclist detection, lane keep and steering assist, adaptive cruise control, high beam assist, and a reversing camera otherwise feature. So, what's missing? Well, parking sensors and surround view cameras are unavailable, with the same true of emergency steering functionality and a front center airbag, both of which could prevent the Civic from getting the maximum 5-star safety rating from ANCAP. Yep, neither ANCAP nor its European counterpart Euro NCAP is yet to crash test the new Civic and therefore deliver its verdict, so time will tell how it stacks up.
At launch, the VTiLX is powered by a familiar but revised 1.5 litre turbo petrol 4-cylinder engine. It now produces 131 kilowatts of power, up 4 kilowatts, and 240 newton meters of torque, up 20 newton meters. It's mated to a continuously variable transmission, or CVT, but it too now has improved performance. As before, outputs are sent to the front wheels.
Now, if you're after something a little more eco-friendly, a self-charging hybrid powertrain dubbed eHEV will be added to the Civic range in the second half of 2022. It of course will pair a petrol engine with an electric motor, so stay tuned for our upcoming review. But if you want higher performance instead, then wait for the yet to be revealed next generation Type R hot hatch to arrive at the end of 2022. If it's anything like its predecessor, it will be worth waiting for. The VTiLX's fuel consumption on the combined cycle test is an encouraging 6.4 litres per 100 kilometres. But in my real-world testing, I averaged 8.2 litres, which, while 28% higher than the claim, is a solid return given some of my enthusiastic driving. Goes without saying, the aforementioned eHEV will be more efficient, be it controlled conditions or the real world, so keep an eye out for our forthcoming testing of the second Civic variant.
Like all other Honda Australia models, the new Civic comes with a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, which is 2 years short of the no strings attached standard set by other mainstream brands. That said, the new Civic also comes with 5 years of roadside assistance, although its service intervals are on the shorter side at every 12 months or 10,000 kilometres, whichever comes first. That said, the available cap price servicing means the first 5 visits cost just $125 each, or an exceptional $625 for the first 5 years or 50,000 kilometres of ownership. Behind the wheel of the new Civic, the first thing you notice, or maybe don't notice, is the CVT. It's actually really good, which you often don't say about CVTs, but in this particular instance, as you're driving along as we are now, it's quite progressive and linear in terms of how it deals with inputs. Whereas other CVTs, if you breathe on the throttle, they'll just spike up the rev range. That's definitely not what happens here. Again, it is progressive and linear. And for that reason, when you're driving around town as we are now, it behaves pretty much like a traditional automatic, which is really great to see. But again, if you do go full throttle, perhaps merging onto a freeway or something like that, it will behave in that kind of CVT manner that perhaps we're used to, but on the whole, it is probably one of the best, if not the best, implementations of a CVT yet. And the good thing about that, of course, is it extracts the full performance of the 1.5 litre turbo petrol 4-cylinder engine. Again, you're never really going to chase peak power in this car, but you can definitely lean on the really wide torque band that it has. So certainly around town, you've got enough pulling power. So performance is pretty decent, and acceleration for the segment is pretty solid too. But aside from that, what I would say the best party trick for the new Civic is its handling. It is probably setting the benchmark for the segment now. It corners really, really well. As we come into this bend here, it sits really flat and really controlled and predictable. If you do push hard being front wheel drive, you do get a bit of understeer in some situations, but for the most part, it's really awesome. Part of that success, of course, comes down to the steering, which is really lively. It's nice and direct as you turn the wheel. It's also really well weighted too. Some people might prefer it if it was a little bit lighter, particularly for maneuverability around town, but I think that kind of sportier feel, being a little heavier but not too heavy, really suits the Civic well. What probably isn't quite so good though is the ride. Again, it is comfortable in the Civic, but I'd say it's good, not great. Certainly not as good as some other rivals in the segment. On a smooth surface, again, nice and comfortable, but as soon as you start to encounter an uneven surface, particularly at low speed, it can get a little bit busy. Now, the 18-inch wheels on this particular car have a 40 profile for rubber, so it'll be interesting to see if they're any better with a slightly chunkier tyre, but certainly around town it can be, again, a little busy. As you go to higher speeds though, things do balance out a little bit and it's a much more consistent ride, but yeah, if there was any room for improvement in terms of how the Civic drives, it definitely would be on the ride front. One other thing that Honda has really made a point of improving are the noise levels of the Civic. Now, don't get me wrong, you still hear tyre noise, road noise, engine noise, but they are definitely more muted than they were before. And if you've got the 12-speaker Bose sound system in this VTiLX pumping, you really don't hear anything, particularly around town. If you go on a highway, obviously those noises get a little bit louder and are a bit more prevalent, but it's very comfortable and quiet for the segment. Another thing is, as I've hinted at before, visibility and the improvements Honda has made. The windscreen is lower than it was before, so you get almost a panoramic view of the front of the car, but also the relocation of the side mirrors to the doors is a masterstroke as well, because you get that little bit of extra visibility out the front corners that you didn't get beforehand. Also, the move to a 6-window design at the side also means when you are doing shoulder checks, you've got an extra quarter window that you can peek through as well. So even the rear window, and again, this is a sloping hatchback, you get a really good view out of it. So it's certainly not a letterbox. So a lot of really great improvements on visibility too. Compared to its predecessor, the 11th generation Civic is a massive improvement in nearly every single way. It's universally good looking, as practical as a small hatchback gets, cheap to own and great to drive. But with a $47,000 starting price, the new Civic is out of reach for a lot of small car buyers who are probably hoping to put down their hard-earned for the new model. And for that reason, I'd love to see Honda Australia introduce at least one lower specification grade that makes it more accessible and more affordable for more buyers. But what do you think? Is the new Civic priced to compete? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget, there's even more detail in my written review, including a breakdown of the upcoming overall score on the CarsGuide website. Thanks for watching.